The Survivalist Specialization is one of 3 different specializations you can choose to play as in the Division 2. While the Sharpshooter focuses on incentivizing long-range combat and the Demolitionist focuses on close-range combat, the Survivalist fits perfectly in between the two, incentivizing mid-range combat. Whenever you choose to play as a Survivalist, you'll be handed the explosive-tipped crossbow, which is the Survivalist's signature weapon. It does a nice amount of damage to a single enemy, as well as causing bleed damage if the enemy survives the explosion. The AoE effect of the explosion is kind of small, but can definitely mess up a closely grouped cluster of enemies. So let's go over the Survivalist's perks and talk about what's good about the Survivalist Specialization and what isn't so great. The perks are separated into 4 groups: General Modifiers, Weapon Modifiers, Skill Modifiers, and Miscellaneous Modifiers. At the end of this review, I'll give you my overall opinion on the Survivalist Specialization compared to the other 2. So let's get started with the Survivalist's General Modifiers. Elite Defense is a passive talent that will give you 15% more protection from elites. This perk has probably saved my life a ton of times. 15% extra protection from elites is nothing to scoff at. The next perk in the General Modifier category is the Triage Specialist. This passive talent increases outgoing healing by 15%, which means you can heal your teammates 15% more effectively. Triage Specialist works very well with the Survivalist's skill modifiers, which we'll get more into in a little bit. Crunch Time is a talent that increases your skill cooldown time by 10% while utilizing cover. Vital Protection reduces the chance you're critically hit in conflict by 20%. All 3 specializations have this perk. It essentially makes you a little more difficult to kill. The last perk in the General Modifiers category is Survivalist Tactical Link. This talent gives you and your team 10% more damage to enemies who have status effects. Now let's move on to the Weapon Modifiers category, starting with the Incendiary Grenade. The Incendiary Grenade is the best grenade in the game, in my opinion. It has a pretty large area of effect. It does damage to the enemy, it prevents them from aggressing you, and best of all, the flame can make it through walls. If you've played a lot of the Division 2, I'm sure you've run into the problem where enemies don't make it out into the battlefield and get stuck behind a door or a wall. This can prevent you from continuing on with a mission, but oftentimes you can actually kill those enemies with an incendiary grenade through the wall. Anyway, best grenade in the game. Let's move on to the next perk. The Survivalist D50 is a pistol that's unique to the Survivalist Specialization. It's the most powerful pistol of the 3 specializations, but it's also the most sluggish. Unfortunately, all 3 of the Specialist pistols are capped at level 300, making them irrelevant in combat. Gunslinger is a passive talent that will increase your sidearm damage up to 10% if you unlock both tiers. Signature weapon damage increases the crossbow's damage up to 145% if you unlock all 4 tiers, and honestly, this goes for all 3 specializations. Signature weapons aren't very practical unless this perk is maxed out. I recommend trying to max out this perk sooner than later so you can actually get some use out of the crossbow, grenade launcher, or sniper rifle. The next perk in the weapon modifier category is called Running the Gun, which will give your shotguns an extra 15% damage output. When you think about how much damage a shotgun does, and then you add 15% on top of that, it's actually a substantial amount of extra damage. Next up is a passive talent called EMI, which gives your assault rifles an extra 15% damage boost. Assault rifles are my favorite weapon type in the game, so I personally really like this perk. The last perk in the weapon modifier category is a mod called the Infantry 5.56 Magazine. This mod will give your weapon 30% further optimal range, which is super nice if you're looking to add range to an assault rifle or LMG. I personally prefer using extended magazines, but it just depends on what you're trying to go for. The next category is the skill modifiers, which consists of 3 different perks. The first one is called Mender, which is a type of seeker mine that you can equip as one of your skills. It can repair your armor, or you can send it over to a teammate to repair their armor. Out of all the 3 specializations' unique skills, this one is my favorite. It's kind of like the Fixer drone, except it rolls around on the ground, making it harder for the enemy to destroy. Next is the Magnetic Disc perk, which is actually a skill mod. It reduces the cooldown time by 9.7% for any seeker mine that you're using. If you want to utilize this perk, remember that you actually have to equip it. It doesn't take much skill power to use. The last perk in this group is called Laria Tridentata Infusion. This is another mod that you can equip. It will increase the healing capability of the seeker mine by 14.5%. So let's move on to the last category of perks, the Miscellaneous Modifiers, starting with a talent called Distributed Repair. When you use an armor kit, it will take 5 seconds for the armor repair to reach 100%, but any of your allies that are within 10 meters will also have their armor repaired during that 5 seconds as well. So it's not great if you're in dire need of armor, but it's pretty awesome for the whole team. The next perk is a talent called Explosive Bolt Acquisition. If you kill an enemy while they're inflicted with a status effect, there's an increased chance that they'll drop signature ammunition for your crossbow. Next on the list is called Group Signature Ammo Supply. Whenever you get multi-kills on status affected enemies, there's an increased chance of signature ammo dropping for everyone on your team. Scraping By is a talent that gives you 5 ammunition for your active weapon when moving from cover to cover in combat. I think this is kind of a throwaway perk. It's rare that you'll ever be so strapped for ammo that you'll need to concern yourself with performing cover to cover runs. So the very last perk to go over is the Survivalist Uniform. I've said this in the other 2 specializations reviews, but the uniform's okay, but I think most players will want a customized look. I believe the reason the developers decide to make all 3 specializations their own uniforms is to clearly show other players what class you're using. So, respect to the developers for the thought, but most players will want to present their own image. The Survivalist Specialization is currently my favorite specialization in the Division 2. If I had to give it a rating out of a possible 10 points, I would give it a 9 out of 10. If you've seen my review on the Demolitionist and Sharpshooter specializations, you know that I gave both of them an 8 out of 10. So let me explain why I'm giving the Survivalist 1 point more than the other 2 specializations. The first reason is the Incendiary Grenade. It's like the flashbang, except it does damage, but more importantly, you can be the sole person that saves a whole team a huge headache when an enemy doesn't make it out of their spawn zone. So not only do I think the Incendiary Grenade is the best, but it also helps to fix glitched enemies. The next reason is the Survivalist's skill modifiers. The Demolitionist has a mortar turret, which isn't always usable, and the Sharpshooter has a drone that can mark enemies, which isn't very needed. So the Survivalist, in my opinion, has the only special skill really worth using compared to the other 2 specializations. Also, and this is a little bias coming through, I think assault rifles are the best weapon class in the game, so the 15% extra assault rifle damage is something I really like. The 15% protection from elites is awfully nice as well. All of that being said, the crossbow doesn't do as much damage to a single enemy as a sniper rifle, and it doesn't output as much AoE as the grenade launcher. It's kind of in between the 2. And one more thing about the crossbow is that it can kind of be a hassle to aim correctly, so it isn't as reliable as the other 2 specialization signature weapons. So my justification for the 1 point I am not awarding the Survivalist is mostly due to its signature weapon, the crossbow. It's not a bad signature weapon, I just don't think it's as good as the grenade launcher or sniper rifle. So, do you agree or disagree with my review of the Survivalist Specialization? Please let us know what you think in the comments section, and if you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. If you like my content in general, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and Godspeed.